Tonight's Master of Ceremonies is best-selling financial author, respected television producer, and popular public speaker, Mr. Kelvin E. Boston. Author of the best-selling Smart Money Moves for African Americans, Kelvin is also the executive producer of MoneyWise with Kelvin Boston, public television's longest-running multicultural financial television series. In 2006, Kelvin Boston started the MoneyWise Empowerment Tour, the premier African American faith-based financial touring seminar in America, dedicated to providing free financial seminars to African Americans in the United States and abroad. Kelvin Boston also serves as the president of MoneyWise Financial Solutions, LLC, and the MoneyWise Foundation. MoneyWise Financial Solutions provides private label financial services to banks, credit unions, nonprofit organizations, churches, small businesses, development centers, and multicultural consumers. Please put your hands together for Mr. Kelvin Boston.
Consult not your fears, but your hopes and your dreams. Think not about your frustrations, but about your unfulfilled potential. Concern yourself not with those things that you have tried and failed in, but consider only what is still possible for you to do. Pope John XXIII said those words many years ago, but I think they're fitting today as we gather this evening at the 2015 Asset Builders Champion Awards. This evening we will recognize 4 individuals and their work that has helped Americans understand the importance for them pursuing their economic rights, securing their economic justice, and most importantly, enjoying economic freedom. Now, we all know that being a financial freedom fighter is hard work. We all know that being a financial freedom fighter is hard work. The hours are long, the work is tedious, and the journey is sometimes lonely. Still, the public servants we honor this evening have been true to their calling, and in spite of personal, professional, and political pressures, they have been speaking out for those who have no voice, and they have the courage to stand up and tell all of us and remind all of us of the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who once said that we refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So as our honorees accept their awards, consider their journey and let their efforts inspire you to keep fighting the fight to close the wealth gap in our country. Now, I am pleased to announce that this evening we have four stellar awardees. They have all contributed and made great accomplishments in their own right to addressing racial wealth disparities in our country. And because of the hour, we're going to change our program around a little bit. Each of our honorees will be actually given their award by a special presenter, and I want to present the first presenter now. His name is Henry A.J. Ramos. He possesses the team-building skills of Reverend Andrew Young and the commitment of Thurgood Marshall. He is the CEO of the Insight Center for Community Economic Development. Please welcome Mr. Henry A.J. Ramos.
Thank you so much, Kelvin. Wow, what a glorious introduction. I hope I'm deserving of that accolade. Maya, thank you for getting us started and for all that you do. And good evening, everybody. What a dynamic and impressive audience. Thank you for coming out to join us tonight for this inspiring awards program. I feel very privileged indeed to be in the presence of such greatness in energy, in spirit, and in goodwill. Now, I have the distinct honor and privilege of presenting this evening's first Asset Building Champions Award to a great American, U.S. Congressman Luis Gutierrez of Chicago. He's a true friend of our cause and of our growing constituency across this nation. Let me tell you a little bit briefly about the congressman. Now in his 12th term, Congressman Luis V. Gutierrez is the senior member of the Illinois delegation to the U.S. House of Representatives. He's an experienced legislator and an energetic spokesperson on behalf of his constituents in Illinois' 4th District, located in the heart of Chicago. His constituents first elected him way back in 1992. It's hard to believe how time flies. Representative Gutierrez is a nationally recognized leader for his tireless efforts championing issues of particular importance to Latino and immigrant communities and populations all across the country. He has been at the center of every major legislative debate on immigration reform and immigration issues for now more than a dozen years. Until recently, I want to remind you, Representative Gutierrez was also a long-standing leading member of the House Financial Services Committee, where he worked on our behalf in the constituencies that we represent to build economic stability for vulnerable families, help homeowners facing foreclosure, protect consumers, and strengthen regulations so that the assets of taxpayers are protected. Please join me in a rousing welcome and a note of appreciation to our special guest, the Honorable Congressman Luis Gutierrez.
Thank you so much. Here's the one thing that has changed in 23 years. I need to wear glasses. I didn't when I got here in '92. I want to thank, number one, thank you, Senor Ramos. Thank you for the very kind, warm introduction, and thank you all for having me here this meeting. I want to start by thanking the people that are serving us here tonight, starting with Noel, who's over here. He's doing, didn't he? That's some good food. I'm gonna take him home. Gracias, Noel, and all of the other wonderful people that are working here tonight. And you know, they prepared the place for us, and they'll clean it up after we leave, and they serve us in between. They do great work that are going to allow us to enjoy this evening. And put my glasses back on. And I want to thank you to the Center for Global Policy Solutions for including me among these wonderful, great honorees and giving me a chance to address you. People know me as the immigration guy. Always out there around the country talking on TV about immigration and treating immigrant families fairly. They know I work on other things which you have to as a member of Congress, like affordable housing and reducing gun violence and defending the middle class and protecting the safety net for America's working people and middle class families. And occasionally we have fun with serious issues that we raise, like when I introduced a bill calling on the Secretary of the Treasury to put a woman on a $20 bill so that we can put our money where our mouth is when it comes to opportunity and equal pay. They always say the almighty dollar speaks with a loud voice around the world, and I want to make sure that it has a woman's voice. My bill calls on the Secretary of Treasury to convene a panel to get that done. But there's a wonderful group of people that I took the idea from. Actually, I have one young, talented woman in my office, and she said, "Boss, I saw this on the internet." And I said, "Draft a bill, put it together. 20 on 20. You can look them up on the internet. They've got this wonderful survey going on." So it's like many things, it's not originally the congressman's idea, but it's one that I wholly adopt. And you know, I like to come to conferences like this and gatherings like this because you have such a diverse group of people to identify solutions to obstacles that we all find in our diverse communities, about consumer protections and ensuring Americans get a good mortgage and stay in their homes while we debate Dodd-Frank legislation and Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That is a conversation about fairness and standing up for regular people who do not have enough people standing up for them in Washington and around the country, and I want to thank you. When I talk about fighting for higher minimum wage in Chicago, and we got it up, we're going to get it up to $12. It's a beginning. We're not quite up to Seattle's $15. A lot of people ask me, "Oh, the minimum wage, you're raising it." You know what I like to say? I like to say, you know, you have 435 members of Congress and 100 senators, right? And so we set our salaries at $174. And when you think about it, the minimum wage, right, is a month, 1 month salary from. They expect someone to live a whole year on what a member of Congress earns in 1 month. I think there's something wrong between and disconnected between this. And look, and I'm not here to, say they're not worth it. There are wonderful men and women of talent. The only thing is, how do you look at somebody else's worth when you have so much and say, no, we can't do any more? And for our immigrant community. And so I have some prepared remarks, but I just thought, given the introduction that we have, I'm going to share. Look, I started in the Chicago City Council in 1986. And I started in the Chicago City Council in 1986 because there is a congressman named Harold Washington, who was elected mayor of the city of Chicago in 1983. And he gave this young man, really young, an opportunity. He gave me an opportunity. When Latinos sued the city of Chicago, they came up and the trial was coming up, and lawyers were getting ready to go before the federal court to make the arguments. The reporters went up to the mayor, Mayor Washington, and said, "Oh, Your Honor, Mr. Mayor, city of Chicago is being sued for discrimination against Latinos in redistricting. And so how do you feel? What's the city's defense going to be?" He says, "We don't have a defense. We're guilty as charged." That's the kind of remarkable man that he was, and that I had the opportunity to begin in politics. That's what Chicago, remember when he won the Democratic nomination, and all the, Dan Rostenkowski and all the big Democratic wigs in Chicago went with the Republican nominee, and then they said it wasn't about race. Sorry, I don't want and then they had the theme, "Before it's too late." Not for better housing, vote for me for better housing. For better schools, safer. No, before it's too late, vote for me. I think we all understood that message very, very clearly in the city of Chicago. So that's where I come from. That's the city. And my first challenge in the Chicago City Council, 1986, I remember I was so full of myself. I got to the Chicago City Council, and a reporter came up to me and says, "Oh, you have the human rights. No, you have the gay rights ordinance." They didn't call it the human rights ordinance yet. They called it the human rights ordinance because my friends in the LGBT community learned that maybe if you change the wording a little bit, you get a few more votes and you get it passed, and you get a little social justice out of it at the same time. So, and he said, and I just kind of reacted, right? There weren't handlers and posters and people to tell you what you should say, so you spoke from your heart. And I said, "Well, I'm going to vote for that." And he says, "Well, when you go to church on Sunday, the priest and, the cardinals called on, the cardinal of the city of Chicago had called on all the priests, and I'm Catholic." And I said, "Oh my God, I didn't know it was that serious." I really didn't. And I got together with my friends in the LGBT community back then, and we sorted it out. And I just want to tell you, 18 of the 50 of us voted for it. And it failed. But all 18 that voted for it got reelected 3 months later. I mean, it's interesting that everybody that voted for it got reelected, and moreover, it passed 2 years later. So you see the kind of work, and I just want to end with this quick story. So my mom and dad, a lot of people ask me about my work on immigration. And so as I've been traveling around the country, I just came from Yakima, Washington, and I was out in Portland, and then I went to a migrant camp this past Sunday, workers camp. They're getting ready to go start picking cherries. And I traveled in the week before. I was in Albuquerque and Tucson. I travel a lot to places where there are people fighting in our immigrant community. And I've learned that foreign hands are going to pick our food in America, or they're going to pick our food in foreign lands. I'd rather they pick it here, but that we treat those people that pick our food and make us such a strong economy decently and well. And so people say, but Luis, you're Puerto Rican. Puerto Ricans are citizens of the United States, have been citizens since 1917. Why? So I just want to share with you quickly that, my mom and dad, they came in 1952. My mom was 17 years old. She had a 6th grade education. My dad, 9th grade. He was 20. They had absolutely no hope for a better future on the little island of Puerto Rico, none. It was after World War II. They had nothing. Agriculture was dying, and there was somewhat of an increase, but there was nothing for them. So what happened was, between 1950 and 1960, 600,000. When you consider an island of 3 million people, You got to consider what 600,000 is. Left in a decade. And, you know, probably no surprise to people in this room, when they all showed up in New York, there wasn't like this welcome mat said, what a great idea, you all showed up. They said that they were going to undermine civil society, that there was a criminal element to us, to my mom and my dad. That's what they said. They said that, we were coming to get on the public dole. Well, you know, welfare is just better. This all happened in New York City at the beginning of the 1950s. And then they said, is there anything we could do to stop them? They actually called the governor of Puerto Rico and said, you got to stop saying they're bringing tropical diseases. Right? Citizens of the United States, but just the ignorance of it all. But you know what? We didn't look American. The language, my dad didn't speak any English. Neither did my man. They didn't have a code. They knew nothing about the United States of America other than, right, this is the place where I'm going to have a better opportunity than where I came from. It's that humanity moving, right, always looking for a better opportunity. That's what we do. Some of us move willingly, and some of us, unfortunately, history has shown, move because we're forced to. And so when I look at my mom and my dad, I say, man, there wasn't anybody to stand up for them. And say, that's wrong. But I was really lucky because they arrived in '52. So they arrived when the civil rights movement in the United States was really gathering strength and momentum. And the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and a woman out in Birmingham said, I'm going to sit wherever I want on the bus. And so I was born in '53. So even though they arrived here looking for, there was another fight going on. That fight led to a Civil Rights Act in '64. And for me, and the reason I have this microphone, a Voting Rights Act the next year. And because of that Voting Rights Act, the mayor of the city of Chicago, how many years later, we got to go to court using that Voting Rights Act of '65. I was only 12 years old. And so the fight for my mom and my dad and for people like them was given voice and given power, because there was another fight in America that allowed me to have this microphone, to join the Congress, first the Chicago City Council, where we sued. And then they settled the case on the congressional district right away in '92. And wasn't it interesting that Harold Washington came, only spent 2 years here, but he amended the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, so that you didn't have to prove malice and forethought. You didn't have to prove they were conspiring to discriminate. You just had to prove, right, that it was discriminatory and that it debilitated the voting rights. And so I've come here tonight to say, look, I take my responsibility seriously, and when I'm given a podium and the ability to speak to people, I know that churches were burned. You know, people were martyred in this country, dogs, you know, the brutality of the civil rights movement and everything that, and I also learned one other thing as I fight for, is that, you know, when a human rights struggle, a civil rights struggle has to be independent of political parties. I know, you know, everybody's the party. Can you imagine? There wouldn't have been a march on Selma if we, how's it going to look for the, you know, midterm elections for the Democrats? Should we march? Martin Luther King, everybody knows the Kennedys called him up and said, really, do you got to do that march on Washington? That's not good. You need to have your movement separate and independent of political structures, because political structures may not all the time be in sync and have your best. And I learned that. So I came here tonight to say, look, I am, you know, like the American child, right? But I'm also the beneficiary, right, of so much work and so much sacrifice. And we should remember that as we move. A lot of people died. A lot of people their children were killed in churches that were bombed. A lot of people died. A lot of people were lynched so that we could have the ability to have this microphone. I acknowledge that. So I thank them. And so all I'm trying to do is pass it on. Making, you know, we fought. We had an Emancipation Proclamation. We amended the Constitution, the 14th Amendment. And I just want to make sure that everybody who sacrificed so much for that 14th Amendment, you know, that if you're born here, you're a citizen of the United States, that we respect all of that fight and all of that struggle. That's what makes us, I believe, a great country. And I want to thank you all for the wonderful acknowledgement here tonight. Thank you so much.
So we got a little photo opportunity and an award for the congressman.
Actually, come on up, Kelvin.
Come on this side.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you. In the flesh, I see.
We'll take this.
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you so much. How's this? This?
You guys getting the glare out there in the audience?
Okay. How'd I do? Not so good. Like this? Straight up and down. There we go. All right. See, I responded quickly to the English command.
Thank you so much. Are these your numbers? No. Okay. All right. All right. Let's give the congressman another round of applause. Great. I am so honored to be here this evening, and I accepted this invitation because this program tonight is about recognizing people who are helping other Americans live their lives with financial dignity. And for those of you who do not know, the MoneyWise TV series and the foundation that we have is dedicated to helping people live their lives with financial dignity. We're the only national TV series, outreach program, and economic development tour that is committed to this work. And I could not do this work without support of some very great partners. Two of them are here this evening. They are the Insight Center for Economic Development. Give them a round of applause. And the Prudential Foundation. Give them a round of applause. We're happy. Now, you will hear from both of them later this evening. Now, I want to take a moment to ask you to just think about this night. Think about this evening. Consider the context of what's happening and what happened in Baltimore this week. Think about the demonstrations that are going on all across this country as we are in this room this evening. Consider for a moment, if you will, the constitutional questions that the Supreme Court is considering today. And yes, think about the widening gap between those who enjoy economic prosperity and those who must endure economic poverty in America. And my friends, for those of us who believe in the American dream, for those of us who understand the words of the Declaration of Independence, which reads, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. You see, if you believe these thoughts, and for those of us who understand that we have to stand up for economic and freedom and justice for all Americans, then you know that tonight we are at the right place, at the right time, talking about the right issue. So give yourselves a round of applause for being here this evening. Now, I just wish that I had the insight to conceive of this evening. I just wish I had the mindset to recognize asset builders from across this country. I wish that I had the courage to convene a national conference, a summit, if you will, on closing the wealth gap in America. I just wish I had that type of foresight. I did not. But thank God that Dr. Maya Rockeymoore did. She is the president and CEO of the Center for Global Policy Solutions. And in some ways, when I think about Maya and her work, I'm reminded of a story that the poet Melvin B. Tolson used to tell. You see, when he was a youngster, he had to walk through a graveyard every day to get to school. And one day while he was walking through this graveyard, he came across a tombstone. And the tombstone read, I am dead as all can see. Prepare ye all to follow me. Well, after thinking about these words for a few moments, the young poet laureate said aloud to himself, To follow you, I am not content until I know which way you went. Well, my beloved, we all know the direction that Dr. Rockeymoore has gone. And we're all here because we want to follow her. She is a woman of vision who had the courage to have this event. But again, I'm not surprised because she has the courage of Sojourner Truth. She has the grace and style of Lena Horne, and she speaks truth to power like Congressman Barbara Jordan. To say that she's awesome, dynamic leader is an understatement. My friends, please welcome to the stage the one, the only, the important lady of America today, Dr. Maya Rockeymoore.
So, Kelvin, I am happy to follow you because I know which direction you're going. After that introduction, it's nowhere but up. So I am definitely following you. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out this evening and for registering to attend the 2015 Color of Wealth Summit and to welcome you to the fifth in a series of annual events that we've had focused on the racial wealth gap. As you all know, over the past 10 to 15 years, communities of color have been hard hit. The incidents in Baltimore are only really the tip of the iceberg. You know, from Ferguson to, you know, you name it, cities across the country are experiencing the same underlying conditions. And the condition of poverty and the lack of wealth underlies it all. Connected to education, connected to health, connected to economic opportunity. And so what we're seeing, in many ways, I'm proud of the many young people who have come out in Baltimore because it's showing that they have internalized this and that they're willing to stand up. They feel a sense of that that there's got to be something better and that the nation has to do something better for them. And so in that regard, I'm very proud. I'm not proud of the looting and the burning, especially since it was only 4 blocks from our Baltimore house. But at the same time, you know, sometimes you just have to get out there and show that people have rights and that we need to do better. We need to do better. So it's in the spirit and hope for a better tomorrow and with the recognition that we can and must do better that the Closing the Racial Wealth Gap Initiative welcomes you here tonight to honor those champions who have dedicated their life's work to shining a spotlight on and addressing the racial wealth gap. I should say that the Center for Global Policy Solutions is very proud to be a co-sponsor of this initiative with the Insight Center for Community and Economic Development. Can the folks from the Insight Center please wave their hands? We are very proud to partner with them on this initiative and to work with them year-round on mobilizing the Experts of Color Network, on advancing policies that support asset building for communities of color, and to really uplift and highlight the challenge of the racial wealth gap in our nation. And so with that, I would also like to acknowledge my staff who has been very instrumental in putting all of this together. Will my team please stand and wave your hands? And they're all over the room. The folks from the Center for Global Policy Solutions. And so tonight's awardees, as you all know, are from all walks of life. We have an activist academic. We have an activist community development expert. We have an activist leader of a national community-based organization. And as you just heard, we have an activist member of Congress. You will note that the common element in all of these terms is activist. These individuals don't sit there or just talk. They actually do. And so with that, you know, they act on their convictions and work to mobilize others towards a shared agenda, and that is why we are honoring them tonight. So before we actually move towards the rest of our presentations, and you should know that we're completely out of order from what we originally had because of the Congress schedule, it is my pleasure to introduce you to the sponsors who made tonight's awards reception and the 2015 Color of Wealth Summit possible. First, I'd like to bring to the stage Ms. Kimberly Ostrowski. She is the Senior Program Director for the Prudential Foundation in the Office of Corporate Social Responsibility at Prudential Financial. She leads the development and implementation of the Foundation's grant programs in asset building and has previously managed its economic development portfolio. Prior to joining the Prudential Foundation, Kimberly was a Senior Associate at Living Cities, where she focused on the areas of workforce development, income growth, asset accumulation, and education. She also managed workforce development programs for the City of New York's Department of Small Business Services. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Kimberly Ostrowski.
Thank you, Maya. Good evening. I am delighted to be here tonight to bring greetings on behalf of Prudential. We are very proud to be sponsoring the 2015 Color of Wealth Summit and to be here tonight at the Asset Builder Champion Awards reception. 140 years ago, Prudential was founded as what we call today a special purpose enterprise to make life insurance affordable for working class families who needed it the most. At the time, it was a revolutionary concept. Today, Prudential lives these founding values by helping people across the globe achieve financial security and peace of mind. We also recognize that many people face barriers to building assets and wealth that are required to achieve financial security. And we believe we have a responsibility to help address those barriers. This is why we support efforts to connect and prepare young men of color to quality jobs through our support of My Brother's Keeper. It's why we invest in minority banks like City National Bank in our hometown of Newark, New Jersey, to keep and grow wealth in Newark. It's why we support research initiatives like the Prudential Hispanic and African American financial experiences, so we can learn more about the financial progress, goals, and challenges of these communities, so our businesses can better serve all of our clients, our customers. And it's why we partner with organizations like the National Council of La Raza to foster greater understanding to the barriers Latinos face in saving towards their retirement. We know that the looming retirement crisis in the United States disproportionately impacts Latinos and other communities of color. As a company, we are actively seeking solutions to this challenge. And we applaud the Center for Global Policy Solutions and the Insight Center for Community Economic Development for shining a light on the racial wealth gap tonight and over the next couple of days. This is a challenge that we are dedicated to addressing and really appreciate working with the committed partners like all of you in the room tonight on this journey. I know that this is going to be a really inspiring evening. We already heard from the Congressman and his great remarks. I want to congratulate all of the asset building champions who've dedicated their careers to helping individuals and communities build wealth and achieve economic security. So on behalf of Prudential, I thank you all for the work that you do here and every day, and really hope you enjoy the rest of the evening and the next couple of days. Thank you.
Isn't it refreshing to have a major mainstream corporation talking about diversity and inclusion and seeing the necessity of actually making sure that all of America's populations reach the financial mainstream? So thank you, Kimberly. We really appreciate Prudential support. Of course, partners are essential to make this work happen, and the Closing the Racial Wealth Gap initiative wouldn't even exist without this next essential partnership. Now, before I introduce Ms. Amy Brown, who is a program officer at the Ford Foundation, I've got to acknowledge some legacies here. Where is Kilolo? Okay. Dr. Kilolo Kijakazi actually initiated this whole thing. It was her concept, it was her baby when she was at the Ford Foundation as the program officer. And so I just wanted to acknowledge you before I acknowledge your next colleague, because now Kilolo is actually at the Urban Institute. Kilolo, please stand. At the same time, we are very pleased to work with Ms. Amy Brown, who is the current program officer at the Ford Foundation. In this role, she focuses on advancing beneficial financial services and strong consumer protection policies for low-income households in the United States. Before joining the Ford Foundation in 2010, Amy was a senior consultant to the Aspen Institute's Economic Opportunities Program. And she also held positions as Director of Income Policy for the Community Food Resource Center, where she launched and managed a large-scale earned income tax credit campaign. She was Senior Associate at MDRC, where she directed technical assistance related to welfare reform. She was also a professional staff member at the U.S. Senate Agricultural Committee, where she worked on food stamp, child nutrition, healthcare legislation, and she was the Executive Director of Neighbors Together Corporation, where she managed emergency food, healthcare, and AIDS education programs for residents. Now, I went to go visit Amy a couple of months ago up in New York, and I was just like wowed about her knowledge about these issues. I mean, she knows it from A to Z. She's very deeply knowledgeable about asset building work, and then the intersection of asset building work with health, with nutrition, you name it. And so it's my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome to the stage Miss Amy Brown.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome. So I'm really excited to be here today. This is my first Color of Wealth Summit. And for those of you who don't know, the Ford Foundation, we're a social justice philanthropy. We work globally in the areas of democracy and human rights, education and culture, and economic opportunity. And as a social justice philanthropy, that perspective frames everything that we do. And it leads us to look beyond individuals and think about the structures and systems that enable or create obstacles to success. It leads us to look at problems of poverty and inequality through lenses of gender and race. And it has led us to focus in particular on the urgent need to close the racial wealth gap. So the data on the racial wealth gap tells the story of unequal opportunity and unequal experience. It reflects both historical inequities and lingering systemic discrepancies. But we don't only know a lot about the problem. We also know a lot about the solutions. We know that low-income families can and do save when they have the right tools to do so. We know that changes in asset limits and tax policies can support savings and asset accumulation. We know that child savings can have far-reaching effects both for college attendance and college completion. And we know that a fair, well-underwritten mortgage can deliver both long-term equity for families and profits for lenders. So I was going to give a shout-out also to Kilolo, who deserves as many shout-outs as we can give her. She was the guiding force behind a lot of this work, behind the summit. And when Kilolo and I worked together at Ford, we always tried to make as much trouble as possible. And I think Kilolo, one of the things I admired most about her was that she made a really good kind of trouble. So I think that's sort of that's our agenda here tonight, is to make trouble, to keep making trouble, and to do it until we see change. It was a daunting task to pick up this work when Kilolo moved to the Urban Institute, but the truth is that it's actually been quite easy, and it's been easy because the partners that we have in this work are phenomenal. They include most of the people here in this room today, and it's been a pleasure to meet many of you in person for the first time. So I really want to thank you all for the amazing work that you do. I want to thank you for raising these issues in the national conversation. I want to thank you especially for shining a light not just on inequality, but on all the interconnections that Maya talked about, the interconnections between race and wealth, between geography and wealth, between education and wealth, between job quality and wealth, between health and wealth, between criminal justice and wealth, between public policy and wealth. Those interconnections are the things that really matter. And if we don't address them, if we don't recognize them, we're not going to achieve the world that we want. So thank you again for coming. Congratulations to all the awardees. And I'm really excited about spending the next day with you all.
Yeah, I think y'all got the hang of this right now. Let's give Maya and our sponsors another round of applause. We're going to continue with our next presenter, Roger Clay. For those of you who don't know, Roger has the insight of W.E.B. Du Bois and the writing skills of Frederick Douglass. He is a visiting scholar with the Institute on Research in the Social Sciences at Stanford University, where he primarily works with the Center on Poverty and Inequality. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Roger Clay.
Well, good evening. Thank you, Maya, and everybody for inviting me back. I was working on this for a long time, starting with Kilelo back in 2004, and it's really gratifying to see how far things have come. It's my pleasure to present the Asset Building Champion Award to John Powell. John's been a friend of mine, personal friend, for 50 years. And so I'm going to say a couple of things about him before the sort of formal stuff, because Maya said that he was an academic activist. So it's not hard for his friends that have known him as long as I have to know that he is here today. When John was a freshman in college, he decided to take all upper division courses one semester, more than 20 units, and he got straight A's, and everybody said, "Woo, that guy is really something." He's always sort of been a troublemaker. That's the way I'm defining an activist. Was the head of the BSU at Stanford, but also in the personal life. When I got married, John came to the reception. My wife and I didn't have much money, so we decided we would hold it in a church that didn't allow alcohol to dampen people's, expectations. And John bought a fifth of Tanqueray, unwrapped, and set it right in the middle of all the gifts. So he's always been sort of a troublemaker like that, and he's a great friend that way. Most of you know John or know his work. For those of you who don't, I'd like to say a few things about where he is today. He's an international recognized expert in the areas of civil rights and civil liberties in a bunch of related fields: race, racism, ethnicity, housing, poverty. He holds the Robert D. Haas Chancellor's Chair in Equity and Inclusion at the University of California, Berkeley. He's also a professor of law and a professor of African American Studies and Ethnic Studies at Berkeley. And for what's important to us, he's the founder and executive director of the Haas Institute for a Fair and Inclusive Society. And let me just say that this is the third institute that John has founded that deals with race. The Haas Center supports research to generate specific recommendations for changes in policy and practice and address disparities related to race and ethnicity. One of John's gifts to us is the creation and promotion of a number of concepts that we now all use in our work. 3 of them are opportunity-based housing, targeted universalism, and implicit or unconscious bias. So, John, please come up.
So, good evening. I would like to recognize all of you. There are many wonderful friends I've known for many years. Where's Abby Yo-Yo?
Right here.
Ah, okay. Hey, Abby. I knew Abby when she was 3 years old. She called me last night to say she was coming. I said, "Can I still call you Abby Yo-Yo?"
Only you, though.
Only me. Obviously, I've known Roger 50 years, Nikki, Henry, many of you, and I've had the pleasure of working with many of you. More recently, I got a chance to know Maya, life keeps getting better. Maya is just, she's all that. She's well-connected, she's smart, she's savvy. She's one of the reasons I think we do have a fighting chance to move this agenda. I'm going to just make a few remarks, but before I do, I want to apologize. And I want to apologize because I'm going to run out when I'm done, but I'll be back. I'm going to Philadelphia tonight. I have a breakfast meeting tomorrow with Cardinal Rodriguez, who is part of the forward team bringing Pope Francis here in September. And they want to talk about issues that are important to the United States, including issues of race, and I've been asked to be a part of that conversation. Now, in case you think I'm really a troublemaker, which maybe I am, what I want to tell you is that, first of all, Roger drank the Tanqueray. And secondly, he's still married to the same woman. So it's not all bad. These are profound issues that we're dealing with. And I've written a paper where I say poverty is essentially a status of not belonging. It's not just a lack of wealth. And we just had a conference in the Bay Area on othering and belonging. And what's happening in the country is a form of extreme othering to populations, Black, Latino, people, excuse me, people incarcerated, where we're saying, you don't belong. This is not your country. So it's not surprising that after a number of black men get killed, you have a saying Black Lives Matter, saying we belong. So the work we're doing is profound, not just about wealth in the narrow sense, but about, is this our country? Now, I've teased Roger some, and I've been part of the cohorts with a number of you, Tom Shapiro and others, around this issue of wealth. But in our 10, 12 years we've been doing work, we have to acknowledge wealth disparities have gotten worse. And thank you. You know, I had a conference in Detroit, and my dad, who's 95 years old, the press was there, and he said, great, John, but what difference does it make? And at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we make a difference. And we work smart, we work hard, but the wealth disparity is increasing. And one reason it's increasing is because of policies in the country, is because the role of government. In fact, wealth disparities is accelerating. And there's not one disparity, there are two, and they're related. And I'll say more about this in my remarks tomorrow. But one is the disparities between people of color and whites, and the other is the disparity between the elites and everybody else. We need to link those two things together and understand the policies that are driving them. This is not the market. This is not nature. This is not inevitable. This is something that people with power have decided to actually implement on behalf of some people against other people. This is a way of people saying, these people matter, excuse me, and these people don't. In the 1980s and 90s, I started studying concentrated poverty. And one of the things I kept saying then, and I'll say it now, is we really can't understand or change concentrated poverty unless we also deal with concentrated wealth. We actually understand on some level that concentrated poverty maybe is a problem, but we don't link it to the problem of concentrated wealth. Last two comments. We're talking about inequality. Inequality basically say to people, you don't belong, but we're also saying to the people at the concentrated wealth side, not only do you belong, this is your country, right? Not a democracy, not the vast majority of people. You own this country. And so our work is actually bigger than what we might think it is. It's not simply closing one of those gaps, it's closing both of those gaps. And if we don't do them, not only do black people, Latinos, Native Americans, and others lose, we lose our country, we lose our economy, and we lose our environment. So I want to salute all of you for trying to save this country, even though it doesn't necessarily want to be saved. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Let's give John another round of applause. And I was trying to figure out if he was going to take a fifth up there to the Pope, but I hear he likes lemon. I won't go there. Oh man. Okay. All right. Let me get started here. Okay. You know what? I'm sorry. They just gave me this announcement to read. Evidently, wow, someone in this room has lost a roll of $100 bills wrapped in a rubber band. Please see me because we have found your rubber band. Now, don't ask me what happened to the money. That's a Maya question. But we have found your rubber band. Okay, let's keep going. Our next presenter is Ann Price. Wow, I've had the opportunity to be with her. She has the moral compass of Dorothy Height and the gentle spirit of Rosa Parks. She is the director of Closing the Racial Wealth Gap at the Insight Center for Community and Economic Development. Please welcome Ms. Ann Price.
Good evening. I have the pleasure of introducing a very incredible woman tonight, Tanya FIDDLER. She's the executive director of Four Bands Community Fund, a Native Community Development Financial Institution, what we call a CDFI, focused on entrepreneurship and financial literacy development on the Cheyenne River Sioux Indian Reservation located in north central South Dakota. She came a long way. Tanya, an enrolled member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe, has served as the executive director of Four Bands since 2002 and has built the organization from the startup phase into a successful, innovative, and award-winning organization. Tanya is the recipient of several prestigious awards, including the 2008 Bureau of Indian Affairs Entrepreneur Advocate of the Year, the 2007 Small Business Administration Minority Small Business Champion for South Dakota and Region 8, the 2007 Visionary Leader Award for Outstanding Achievement in recognition of her impact in the CDFI field. In addition to her role at Four Bands, Tanya is also the co-chair for the Native CDFI Network, a membership network that was established to create opportunities for Native CDFI peer-to-peer learning and to identify Native CDFI policy priorities. She is the chair of the South Dakota Indian Business Alliance, a group of community partners committed to growing Indian business in South Dakota. Please welcome Tanya FIDDLER of Four Bands Community Fund.
Help me dakiapi. Tuktal hina geoyate we ankapi we Lakota imachiapi na Tanya FIDDLER imachiapi English. Iktewi Chash, I'm a common woman. My name in Lakota is She Stands Where the People Watch Her Woman, and that name came a long time ago before I ever stood up in front of anybody, so it's kind of strange. I am deeply, deeply honored and thrilled and humbled to get this recognition for being a troublemaker, which I really, really love. If we didn't have troublemakers in Indian country, we would have been decimated a long time ago. And I think the most important thing about being able to be up here to receive this award today or this evening is to just bring some understanding or knowledge about Indian country. I think there's a lot of misperceptions about our areas. There are 550 something federally recognized tribes, and we like to joke around and say, if you've got land today, thank an Indian, because talk about asset stripping, talk about taking away culture, our spirituality, our religions have been outlawed. We were boxed into little tiny places, but expected to perform. And what's wrong with you? Why are you poor? Well, you took away our way of subsistence. We were the best resource managers, and I am confident in saying that in front of you today. We were the best resource managers and provided for ourselves, and it's a way of life, say Wolokota, our heritage, this way of life, very rational and fair. So I struggle, and I grew up in poverty, raised by a single mom with 6 kids that believed in us no matter what, even though everything was against us succeeding. But looking back at those types of constraints and the different things that have happened in federal policy, we also fight with state policy and tribal policy to try to value individuals in our community. So, and for some reason, why is it so hard to invest in people, especially children? Why do we have such a problem giving a hand up to poor people? I just don't understand, but we encounter that, and that's where I do like the troublemaker stuff. I don't have any problems standing up for my relatives, and when I greeted you tonight, I said, Midakiapi, you're all our relations. Our way of life includes the deep interactions that it requires for all of us to succeed. The relationship with the land. You know, I think we are the most rational folks out there when I watch what is happening in the country. And good fortune for us. I will say the first time I got to work with Insight Center for Community Economic Development, we did something on the Hill, and it was right after the recession, and the standing joke for us in Indian country was, we really felt bad for all you guys. Everybody besides, you know, the Native people or the people of color who had assets, because you lost it all. We've never had them. We don't get to own and control anything in Indian country, except we're supposed to survive, thrive, and perform and do all these things. I wouldn't do this any other time, but I'm going to do it in this audience today because it's important, and this is our opportunity. And I wanted to say that we're looking for friends, partners, helpers, and those that could join arms with us. South Dakota, we have 9 tribes in South Dakota. We are the poorest counties in America, most of those tribes, because of the rural and remote, no private sector, no ownership or control of anything, and then multi-jurisdictions telling you where to go and what to do. To this day, you know. So I'm asking for all of you that take up a cause, whether, and it's not about Native Americans or any other or race at this point, it's just about humanity. And we recently had an event in Rapid City that I'm going to educate you on because it's that important to me. Because I'm a Yeska, a breed. So for full-blooded Native Americans, I don't fit. And for light, you know, the white people, they say, oh, you're so lucky nobody can tell you're Native, you know. So walking on both those sides, I get to pull the best and learn from each side how to succeed. We have a hockey team in Rapid City, South Dakota called the Rush. You're shaking your head. The Rush, you know, or hockey, ice hockey. American Horse School from Pine Ridge took 47 students to a hockey game back in February, and drunken, non-native people that had one of those boxes where well-to-do people get to have their own box, they began to pour alcohol and throw things on 47 Native American children. South Dakota finds that acceptable, and I would never do this, like I said, in any other time, but these are the few rare moments that I get to, because we need help. And this is the troublemaking. So if they saw you guys coming, they might do something different, you know, kind of thing. But I will end on the good note that it took us 7 years at Four Bands Community Fund to get the first $1 million out the door in a community that banks don't invest in, philanthropy doesn't invest in, and of course, poor people can't pay you back. That first 7 years, $1 million. We're going to hit $10 million this year cumulative, investing in our communities in a rural, remote place, giving people a chance to build assets. We've put $500,000 into families for IDA match savings, youth entrepreneur internships. We're doing workforce development, all the skill building it takes to believe in our people and give them a chance. But if the playing field isn't level yet, we're still just looking through a hole in the fence kind of thing. So we do need help yet in Indian country to make some of this stuff a little bit more fair, you know. And if not, that's okay, because we are some of the strongest, most persevering folk, as U.S. history can denote for you. Look it up. That we're still here today, that we still have the encouragement and strength to keep trying to find ways to make sense of your irrational world, you know, and I don't think we're going to do that. We're going to continue to have a balanced consume and contribute dynamic leadership. Again, I can't say that I've done anything special except support people who show up every day against all odds to make their lives better, to look for chance, for change and hope for their kids. That's where I come from. That's my heart, and I live out the rest of my days dedicated to that. But we do deeply appreciate this opportunity, deeply appreciate your ear in listening to my story tonight, and look forward to more and more success with the resource. We've taken the risks in my community to say we can succeed. $10 million in microloans. Our microloans started at $1,000. That's a lot of lending. And now, you know, we're into bigger projects. We've expanded our lending statewide because guess what? Native Americans in Rapid City, South Dakota, where the Rush hockey team is, we have a high population in Rapid City. 50% of them are living in poverty. And it's not just about the poverty. The investments we've made in asset building, some of my businesses are still low income, but they're not on any government subsidy. They're not going to my tribe asking for help, and they've had a return of their dignity, which is immeasurable. So thank you, everybody, Maya, for the recognition. I know it. I've been there.
She got it so small.
You got that?
All right.
So we're going to have to put it across.
Should we take a village here?
Yeah.
Straight up. Very good.
I probably missed some important things, but.
Excellent. One more, please. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. That's awesome.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
It's great. Let's give Tanya another round of applause. That's fantastic. Okay. Our next presenter is Mi Mao? Moa. Thank you. Thank you, Mi. Oh, yeah, we met Mi Moa. I'm sorry about that. She is the President and Executive Director of Asian Americans Advancing Justice, where she leads efforts to advocate for policies and programs that enable Asian Americans and other vulnerable communities to reach their full potential. And just so you know, I looked this up, called around and did some research, and they tell me that you have the insight of Maya Angelou and the compassion of Marion Wright Edelman. Please welcome Mia Mao.
Wow. At the risk of outing myself, I am actually a poor replacement for Congressman Mike Honda tonight. Obviously, as Congressman Gutierrez had to leave very quickly, Congressman Mike Honda couldn't be here. And it is the right time and the right opportunity, and I knew you would do the research when I got the phone call to come in and be the replacement presenter. It is a tremendous honor for me to be here tonight. I think I got the call because a lot of people know that Lisa Hasegawa is a great friend of mine. I am so honored and so privileged to be presenting the Asset Builder Champion Award to my personal friend. She is the current Executive Director of National Capacity. She has been at the helm of National Capacity over so many years, and in that capacity, she has grown the organization from 16 founding organizations in 1999 to over 100 member organizations from across the country, including Hawaii and Guam. Lisa truly believes that local voices should have a national influence, and through National Capacity, she brings the unique, on-the-ground perspective to DC through the voices of her member organizations who are experts in their field and understand the needs, barriers, and solutions in their communities. During the housing crisis, National Capacity, through Lisa's leadership, realized a gap in linguistic and culturally relevant services for AAPIs and decided to address this gap head-on by developing a housing counseling network in 2009 that now includes about 20 community-based organizations providing housing counseling services in 30 different languages and in 16 geographic areas across the country. National Capacity also held the first ever election eve poll of AAPI voters to better understand the profile and preferences of AAPIs. These efforts increased the visibility within the mainstream media about the importance of the AAPI vote. Over the years, National Capacity has shed light on the realities of the needs and barriers of AAPI communities, breaking the myth of AAPIs as model minorities and as a successful community through its many, many groundbreaking reports over the years that have highlights, among other things, that AAPIs are the fastest growing poverty population in the wake of the recession. The continued financial vulnerability of AAPIs and the wealth gap and the barriers to asset building from AAPIs is real and is continuing. But Lisa's reach and influence goes well beyond the AAPI community. With all the bridges she has built and the national coalitions that she has fostered, Lisa is a national voice who has continued to push for racial and social justice, both for the Asian American community, but she is most often right in that sweet spot at the intersectionality of how to improve circumstances for all vulnerable communities in this country. I know Lisa well, and I know her work because I represent the communities that are the direct beneficiaries to Lisa's troublemaking. It takes people like Lisa to make it possible to transform our future, to make it possible for a refugee kid like me from the mountains of Laos to believe that it is possible to dream of a future beyond the next 3 growing seasons, to dare to dream of a future that could span the next 3 generations. Please help me welcome my friend, Lisa HASEGAWA.
Thank you all so much for this honor. Because Mimua was so great to back up Congressman Honda, I have to tell you a little bit about my friend Mimua. She's actually a state senator, was a state senator from Minnesota, and was one of the first Hmong elected officials in the country, and so she's been a leader in her own right, and it's been great to have her here in Washington, D.C. to troublemaker together. So thank you. I really appreciate it, me, for you being here tonight. I wanted to just thank GPS and Insight. I feel like really this whole room is full of my friends and family, folks who've been walking the path with National Capacity as we've done our work on closing the racial wealth gap, and a lot of the research and the programmatic work that we've done has really been inspired, and as much, I think our analysis is much sharper because so many of you have been great partners in this room. Couple of legacy folks. I just have to do a shout out to Meiju Louis, who was actually the first director. of this effort, and I really think that, Meiju, when you really kicked off this work so many years ago, you being the lead of that as an Asian American immigrant woman was very inspiring to me, and I think has ensured that Asian American women and API issues have been really a part of this conversation. And I used to be Meiju's intern when I was a college student, so it's gone back that long. So really, I stand on your shoulders, and I really wanted to recognize you and appreciate you. And again, to all the folks at Insight and Maya, particularly at GPS, I just really love working with you, and we do lots of troublemaking throughout the year here in Washington, D.C., so thank you for your partnership. And Roger and Henry, it's been really wonderful to work with Insight. I stand here today to accept this award. I'm a public health person by trade. I didn't know a lot about housing, community, and economic development. I have had to learn it. As Meiju used to be at Healthcare for All, I've really walked the path together with so many folks. And on the National Capacity team, I really have to say this name, even though she's not with us here tonight. Jane Dung is the director of our program and director of program and advocacy, and she's been part of Econ. And I just wanted to say, I can't see you all because the light is in my eyes, but the capacity team, I think many folks are here, there. Rosita Choi is our deputy director. We have, I think, Seamus Agnani is our new policy director. Melvin, Tavila, Soyanya, all of you guys are part of the capacity team, and I just thank you for all coming tonight. I just wanted to say a little bit about myself and what brings me here to this work, tell you a teeny bit about national capacity, and then just end with, since I'm the last, I'll try to make it short and bring us home. So about, my personal story, I feel like federal policy, I think, people sometimes, when you're not in Washington, D.C., don't understand the connection between policy and wealth. And I am here to say, as a grandchild of people who were interned during World War II, we essentially lost all of our property. And so if my family still owned what was our strawberry farms in what is now Irvine, California, I can tell you that I would be in a very different position today in terms of my own personal wealth. So the strawberry farms, that's my grandparents on one side, strawberry farms, other side, garment workers on my mother's side, and they built some wealth, they built some assets, and essentially they were put back because of federal policies, right? So I feel like I understand that very deeply, and so since this opportunity with national capacity, we've really been able to shed a light, not only on Japanese American communities and some of the history there, but certainly with Southeast Asians, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders, the importance of disaggregating that data and really understanding that we are not the model minority, and that really that is used as a tool so often not to lift up Asian Americans, but really to denigrate other communities of color. And so I really feel that it's so important that national capacity is a part of a network like this so that we can really stand together. Our communities need to understand that we have skin in the game here, that our communities need our voices, that there are 2 million Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders that are living in poverty. Mimua referenced the fact that, and so many of the researchers in this room have also given light to this, but 54% of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders' wealth was lost in the wake of the recession. So they are very real issues, for our communities. And I think that even people in our own community don't really understand that deeply. So I just really appreciate all of you. A little bit about national capacities work. In this area, we have launched lending circles, and we've been doing micro-enterprise work. Yes, we've been doing the housing counseling work, but that was very much drawn, sort of built as a crisis, like a response to the foreclosure crisis. And now I think that we're really trying to put in place all of the infrastructure that really should have been in place for the diverse Asian American and Pacific Islander low-income communities that really is more around wealth and asset building and just a much broader frame. So we have our housing counseling network. We're also doing lending circles around the country and partnering with so many of you in the room. So that's a little bit about our work. And yes, we have over 100 awesome organizations on the ground. Happy to share more about their work and to connect all of you in this room with them. So, again, I'll just end on a personal note. I think that, I think about my own situation now, and, I'm in the age where I'm like, okay, I've got 15 years left, 20 years left maybe to retirement. And I have to say that, I've been feeling it very personally with the Affordable Care Act that is covering now my brothers with expanded Medicaid, Medicare, helping out my grandmother. If those kinds of systems were not in place for my own family, I wouldn't be able to save for retirement. I think that, it's so important that we make the connections to our daily lives as opposed to them just being sort of policies that we talk about. So I was thinking a lot about, okay, how can I make this more personal? And so, I have been really blessed to work with so many of you in the room, and just honored to have received this on behalf of Capacity. Thank you all very much. These are so beautiful.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're here in DC. I don't have to get on a plane.
All right. Great. Thank you. Let's give Lisa another round of applause. Fantastic. Okay. And let's give all of our sponsors, presenters, and honorees another round of applause. It's been great. This has been a very special evening. We hope that this evening has inspired you to continue your work to close the wealth gap in America. It has inspired me. Tonight I was reminded of the words of Shirley Chisholm. I had a chance to interview her after she had left Congress, and it was during a time when I thought she should be taking off, sitting back, enjoying her retirement from a long life of service to our country. And yet she was still out trying to mobilize women, and especially African-American women, to get out to vote. And so I asked her, why are you doing this? And she said, Calvin, eternal vigilance is the price we must pay for our freedom. And at that time, it helped me understand that in many ways, eternal vigilance is the price we must pay for economic freedom in this country. We can never give up. It's a constant fight. And tonight I was reminded also why we need to make the relationship and help people understand that relationship between closing the wealth gap and pawn ownership. That's pawn ownership. And I learned the importance of pawn ownership one evening when I had the privilege of being in the company of Reverend T.D. Jakes, and he shared the parable about the hungry man and the fish. We've all heard the parable. It says that if you give a hungry man a fish, you will feed him for a day. If you teach a hungry man how to fish, you will feed him for a lifetime. Well, the good Reverend took this to a whole new level, I thought, when he said, if you show the hungry man how to buy the pond that is filled with fish, then he'll never worry about being hungry again. And neither will his children or his grandchildren or his great-great-grandchildren. You can clap on that. That's fine. You see, my beloved, it's time for us to share and to teach those who we love and those who we serve that they must own their own pond. And I find it very interesting today that after the Great Recession, after the turmoil with the mortgage crisis, to hear people who do have means tell people who do not have means that they should not try to buy a home because they cannot understand it nor afford it. I find it difficult to hear these same people tell people that they should not own shares of publicly traded company. And I find it very hard when some of these people have the audacity to tell us not even to pursue our education, let alone own our own businesses. Now, something we should have learned, at least my people should have learned from slavery, is that whatever they tell us not to do is what we should be doing. So I just want to let you know that on the MoneyWise TV show and all the work that I'm involved in, that we're going to help people own their ponds. We have to help people own their ponds. We have to help people understand in the 21st century how to secure employment, own their own homes, manage their own businesses, manage their own pensions, and never give up on the American dream. Now, I have the privilege to live in Baltimore, Maryland. Interesting place. I live downtown, not too far from all the activity that's going on. And I've seen the gentrification that's happening in Baltimore. I know that right now, and as we sit here today, there's about $3 billion worth of development that's going on in Baltimore between the Inner Harbor, and if you don't know that Johns Hopkins and the University of Baltimore are becoming a biotechnology center for all of America. Yet with all of this development going on, I have not heard of one training program in Baltimore to help the people of Baltimore accept those jobs. And you wonder why people are frustrated and upset. Because all these six-figure paying jobs are going to have to go to people who do not live in Baltimore. And so, my beloved, I'm just saying that it's time for us to help people understand that we have to stand up and demand the training and the opportunities to enjoy those type of jobs all across America. I was reminded also this evening about the man who rushed up to the mayor of his city and asked the question, "Mayor, what is the greatest nation in the world?" And the mayor responded, "Oh, I know the answer to that question. The greatest nation in the world is the United States of America." And the man replied, "No, Mayor, the greatest nation is a donation." Oh, I know some of you get that later. It's okay. And the reality is that we all can see the humor in that story. However, I believe that there is something wrong with America when no one in this room can walk down the streets of Washington, D.C. without some man or some woman coming up to you and asking you for a personal donation because they are hungry, unemployed, or homeless. There is something wrong with America today. But tonight, I have been reminded not to focus on what is wrong with America, but instead focus on what is right in our collective consciousness. Tonight, I have been reminded of the various struggles of my people, of the African American experience here in our country. And like our friend from the Indian nation, I can stand here tonight before you, the person of a people who once were a slave, and now we have an African American in the White House. Somebody should say amen. Amen. Someone should understand why I can stay here and be proud of the fact that, like my friend from the Indian nation, I can say, I am still here. You see, my friends, Langston Hughes, the great African American poet, once captured this never say die spirit in Black America. Listen to how he describes the Black American experience in a poem entitled Still Here. He's speaking through his character named Jesse B. Simple. And he says, "Man, you know, in this life I have been abused, confused, false arrested, tried, sentenced, blackjack, near about lynch, but I am still here. You know, I have been bit by dogs, cats, rice, mice, jiggers, bed bugs, granddaddies, mosquitoes, and even a gold-toothed woman. But I am still here. You know, I was born with the measles, and since then I've had cramps, chicken pox, tonsillitis, arthritis, backaches, mumps, and a strain. But I am still here. Daddy-o, I am still here. My friends, tonight I was reminded why we are still here as a race. We are still here because whenever there was something wrong with America, people with a right consciousness came together to correct America. People like the men and women we honored this evening. People like Dr. Maya Rockymore, and people like each and every one of you who've gathered here this evening. So I just hope that you have been inspired to go back and continue your work on closing the wealth gap in America. I know that this work will not be easy, so let me just suggest that when you're doing your work, consult not your fears, but your hopes and your dreams. And tomorrow when you go to the summit, don't think about those frustrations, but consider more importantly your unfulfilled potential. And when you return home, and when you return back to your place of work, don't concern yourself with those things that you tried and failed in, but consider instead what is still possible for you to do. I want to thank you for allowing me to be here this evening, and at this time, let's bring back the one and only Dr. Maya Rockymore.
So let's bring another round of applause for Kelvin Boston. I'll be clapping all night just for that introduction, but thank you so much, Kelvin. You did an excellent job. We were really inspired. Thank you so much. And so tomorrow, the summit starts at 8:30 a.m. Those of you who are staying here in the hotel, there'll be shuttles running starting at 6:30, I believe, at every other interval. The directions are actually in your packet. And so we look forward to seeing you at the Congressional Visitor Center at 8:30, because we're going to get started at 8:45 sharp. This young lady here is the chair of our board. Her name is Dr. Carol Estes. She is a retired professor emerita at UC San Francisco. She is an expert in aging policy and has done a lot of work around the intersection of aging and health and wealth. And so she is going to actually close us out tonight with just a few short words. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. What an honor to be here and to be able to serve in a capacity that would bring these issues to the fore and this incredible audience. Maya Rockymore I first saw as, she seemed like a child at the time, but she was an intern at the Ways and Means Committee. This is probably her first days on the Hill, and I was working on Social Security then and my politics in the Gerontological Society of America and the American Society on Aging, working on Social Security and Medicare issues. And as a Californian, the Insight Center has been such an inspiration in terms of its bringing the reality and the empirical knowledge about what it takes and how inadequate the poverty level is, and really contributes so much to the whole idea of what a livable wage is and everything that has followed since. So bringing these pieces together in this room tonight and the wonderful awards is more than an inspiration. At the last 12 years, I've spent a lot of my research and active practice as a public sociologist, we might call, looking at the structural analysis. And that's what's the brilliance of what the Ford Foundation and Kololo has brought and given to us with roots, because there was support for work and the voice and the thinking that it took, that all of this represents. And I've been working on studying the resistance movement And this is part of the resistance movement. It's the resistance movement to the takedown of the 1960s, and everything was achieved that during that incredible, also very combustive time with lots of ferment and torment. But the forces are gathering again, and this is our time of resistance. So I just want to say what a privilege it is to be here, to be with all of us as we're working in our various, very important and collaborative ways to recognize and take down the forces that are trying to take away everything we have built and saved and contributed to, like Social Security and Medicare, and privatizing that. But it's so inadequate, and to expand and right the wrongs that are being done and have been done most recently. So I'll just close with one thought. Those who say it can't be done should stop those of us who are doing it.